Story that hasn't sat well with me the entire week. South Africans from all walks of life have been weighing in on the latest progress in international reading literacy study. Shockingly, it shows that 81% of grade 4 pupils can't read for meaning in any language here in South Africa. What are the solutions? What is the mountain of the issue that we're actually dealing with? We're joined in the studio by Read a Book SA Chairperson Tebogo, Ditshego, who joins us to discuss the findings of this report. Before we start talking about solutions, let's talk about how we shouldn't just dismiss these findings. Yes, it's an international report, but it goes very deeply to a very serious issue that speaks to problems within our education sector and also problems with poverty in South Africa. When you're talking about grade 4 pupils in South Africa, 81% can't read for meaning. That should really shake all of us to the core. What sprung out to you in that survey, Tebogo?
Well, firstly, it's horrifying, but it's not surprising because if you look at the reading culture in South Africa, we haven't made much progress over the years. I mean, according to the South African Books Development Council, 86% of South Africans are not active book readers. Now, we need to go to an even more startling statistic that 95% of South African parents do not read books to their kids. Now, you look at the statistic that it says 81% of kids cannot read for comprehension. It demonstrates to you that there's no reading culture in the household and in general society. And how are kids going to learn how to read books and the benefits of reading books and the world of literature if we are not inculcating it in the household? So it's very important for us to start in the household and broaden it into society. Now, I think one of the issues is that we talk about reading just for the sake of reading as if people understand it, inherently. What are the benefits of reading? And we really need to go into depth in terms of building that understanding, about why people need to read. And I can go through some of, the benefits of reading.
Yeah, because it does come, the reading for meaning thing is something that's really stuck with me because that talks about comprehension. I'm the daughter of a primary school teacher whose great love for reading led to her creating a library in a community that is disadvantaged, because she believed if a child is taught to read for comprehension, for the joys but also for comprehension, the knock-on effect is felt in all the other subjects that are important: mathematics, science, biology, the list goes on.
Yes.
If you're not reading with comprehension, none of those other subjects are going to be important. That makes sense, doesn't it?
And that's overarching. One of the benefits of reading is that you comprehend the material that you're given. Now imagine you can't comprehend any of the policies at school. How are you going to adhere to them? You can't comprehend your rights as a citizen. How are you going to, exercise your rights as a citizen? You can't comprehend a brief when you start working, a brief from a client. How are you going to, build your career? So it's going to be very difficult to build a society, that cannot comprehend basic reading material.
Now, the legacy of apartheid has been felt very deeply in our education system in South Africa. And more than 20 years down the line, we still haven't rectified that ship. How much further back do we have to go to get to the source of why we are not a reading, we don't have a reading culture in South Africa? I mean, I think I've been in a country like Zambia, for instance. I covered the elections in Lusaka once, and the thing that really struck me is how people on the side of the roads are selling books. Mountains of books standing there because that's what people are into, they read. But of course, their history also has had an impact on the education system, but they came out on the other side with a real reading culture. Where do we start at looking what the source of our issue is with regards to not having a reading culture?
Well, there's many reasons. Some of them are structural. So in terms of resource allocation, you need to see resources being allocated to initiatives that spread a reading culture. It's very important. We need to start training teachers, to better enhance their skills, to inculcate the culture of reading. You need relevant reading material. So you need to support authors financially, to start to produce these books.
With stories that children can relate to and adults can relate to as well.
Exactly, and you need to enhance accessibility of the reading material. So once it is published, we want to see that reading material in libraries, we want to see it in the school curriculum, and we want to see it at the bookstores, of which bookstores are doing quite a good job in terms of creating access to reading material, but we also want to see it in libraries and in educational institutions. But I think what is overarching and very important is that we don't understand the benefits of reading. And there's a research that came out in the UK Telegraph that in their society, reading books for leisure is the single most important indicator of a teenager's future success.
Sure.
I mean, I wish people knew that reading can literally reduce your stress by up to 65%. That'll enhance the quality of your life.
And for a child, it helps you to dream about a life outside of what those realities are.
That's very important, because if you're going to live your life only based on your own perspective and the people around you, you have really limited your worldview. So as you've just mentioned, that reading expands your worldview, and you're able to, latch on to other people's experiences, other people's skills, for you to really tackle your life from different perspectives. Your vocabulary improves, and if you have better vocabulary, you can communicate better. You can then extrapolate what are the benefits of communicating better. Your memory improves, so your ability to recall information, your fluid intelligence, you're able to connect the dots on various information, your emotional intelligence, because reading is inherently...
Worldview as well.
Your worldview, because reading is inherently an empathetic process where you step out of your reality into the reality of somebody else. So reading has so many dimensions to it that you cannot not become a book reader.
Let's talk about access then. We know that the problems that our education department face are manifold. The structural issues about building of schools, what are inside those buildings. And then we have our public libraries. I mean, I know there have been serious issues there. I mean, I've heard anecdotally that libraries don't open on Saturdays anymore. I might be wrong. That might have changed post-COVID. These are all places that are supposed to be put there to give people access to books without them having to pay for it, really. Where are we in that, in terms of libraries in schools and also our public libraries and the access that they are or supposed to be giving to general members of the public?
So according to the South African Books Development Council, 85% of South Africans do not have access to a nearby library.
Massive problem. So
obviously, that reduces the access to reading material. It reduces your access to a place and a sanctuary where you can study. It's such an issue in our society that we need to now see more libraries being built. And the National Development Plan indicated that we're going to resolve that by 2030, but we're not moving in that direction.
And for instance, I mean, my library experience is in a leafy suburb. We don't know if do you know if libraries have been built in the last 20 years in the communities that have been without library because of our structural legacy in the country?
So you have had libraries being built. I saw a library being built in the Eastern Cape by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, but it's not enough. You need to have a library within 5 minutes of anywhere you are in South Africa, because you need to create that access to books. And libraries even become more than that, where you could even have meeting rooms, to build small businesses and a lot of other amenities.
We spoke to the head librarian at a library on the Cape Flats just a couple of months ago, and that's become a safe haven where they allow kids to game, just to get them to come into the library, and once they're in there, they get them reading. So it's also about remaining relevant. Just quickly before I let you go, you're with a Read a Book SA. Yes. These organizations do such important work, and I know there's also a reading coalition of some kind. I might be wrong. That sits quite close to the presidency because it has been given that stature. What does Read a Book SA do, and where can people go and find out more?
So you do have Read a Book SA. You have Nali Bali that does also great work. But Read a Book SA is Africa's biggest online book club. It was established 11 years ago on the 23rd of April 2012. And people can follow it on Twitter at Read a Book SA. Post the current book that you're reading. We like it when you take a picture of the book, post it. You don't have to do, an elaborate review on the book. Just say you're reading it, talk about...
So it's like a massive book club.
It's a massive book club, and it's still ongoing. And we have World Book Day, National Book Week that we support. And I think people can come and join us.
And they can just find you on social media, I'm sure. Tebogo, Ditshego, I know you're quite prolific on social media, so people can either find you or Read a Book SA. Thank you so much for your time. Very important, ongoing conversation we need to keep having as we try and encourage South Africans to read, read, and read.